I'm at www.cs.williams.edu. We were looking at the African Bushman creation myth. People did not always live on the surface of the earth. At one time, people and animals lived underneath the earth with Kang, the great master and lord of all life. In this place, people and animals lived together peacefully. They understood each other. No one ever wanted for anything, and it was always light even though there wasn't any sun. During this time of bliss, Cain began to plan the wonders he would put in the world above. First, Cain created a wondrous tree with branches stretching over the entire country. At the base of the tree, he dug a hole that reached all the way down into the world where people and animals lived. After he had finished furnishing the world as he pleased, he led the first human up the hole. He sat down on the edge of the hole, and soon the first woman came up out of it. Soon all the people were gathered out of the foot of the tree. Awed by the world they had just entered, next Cain began helping animals climb out of the hole. In their eagerness, some of the animals found a way to climb up the tree's roots and came up out of the branches. They continued racing out of the world beneath until all the animals were out. Cain gathered all the people and animals about him. He instructed them to live together peacefully. Then he turned to the men and women and warned them not to build any fires or great evil would befall them. They gave the word, and Cain left to where he would watch his world secretly. As evening approached, the sand began to sink beneath the horizon. The people and the animals stood watching this phenomenon, but when the sun disappeared, fear entered into the hearts of the people. They could no longer see each other. As they lacked the eyes of the animals, which were capable of seeing in the dark, they lacked the warm fur of animals also, and soon grew cold. In desperation, one man suggested that they build a fire to keep warm. Forgetting Cain's warning, they disobeyed him. They soon grew warm and were once again able to see each other. However, the fire frightened the animals. They fled to caves and mountains, and ever since the people broke Cain's command, people have not been able to communicate with animals. Now fear has replaced the seed friendship once held between the two groups. The Bushmen believe that not only plants and animals are alive, but also rain, thunder, the wind, spring, etc. They claim what we see is only the outside form or body. Inside is a living spirit that we cannot see. These spirits can fly out of one body into another. For example, a woman's spirit might fly into a leopard, or a man's spirit fly into a lion's body. This may be part of the reason that animals play such an important role in their myth. Now, I'm going to read about the San Bushman people. We're at www.krugerpark.co.za. I'm just going to read to you about the San Bushman people. The San are the oldest inhabitants of the southern Africa, where they have lived for at least 20,000 years. The term San is commonly used to refer to a diverse group of hunter-gatherers living in southern Africa who share historical and linguistic connections. The San were also referred to as Bushmen, but this term has since been abandoned as it is considered derogatory. There are many different San groups. They have no collective name for themselves, and the terms Bushman, San, Basara, and Botswana are used. The term Bushman came from the Dutch Bossisman, which means bandit or outlaw. This term was given to San during the long battles against the colonists. The San interpreted this as a proud and respected reference to their brave fight for freedom and from domination and colonization. Many now accept the terms Bushmen or San, like the first people to inhabit other countries in the world. The San have an unfortunate history of poverty, social rejection, decline of cultural identity, and the discrimination of their rights as a group. Yet the San also have received the attention of anthropologists and the media with their survival and hunting skills. Wealth of indigenous knowledge of flora and fauna of southern Africa and their rich cultural traditions. San people speak numerous dialects of a group of languages known for the characteristics clicks that can be heard in their pronunciation, represented in writing by symbols as exclamation marks or slash period or slashes, made up of small mobile groups. Some communities comprise up to about 25 men, women, and children. At certain times of the year, groups join for exchange of new gifts, for the marriage arrangements, and for social occasions. Not related to the Bantu tribes, the San are descendant of early Stone Age ancestors. Clans and loosely connected family groups allow seasonal game migrations between mountain range and coastline. They made their homes in caves, under rocky overhangs, or in temporary shelters. These migratory people do not domesticate animals or cultivate crops, even though their knowledge of both flora and fauna is vast. The San categorize thousands of plants and their uses for nutritional or to medicinal, mystical to recreational and lethal. San men have a formidable reputation as trackers and hunters. San trackers will follow the spoor or tracks of animals across virtually any kind of surface or terrain. Their skills even enable them to distinguish the spoor of a wounded animal and that of the rest of the herd. That ain't hard to do. Anyway, anyway. I'm not even going to get carried away on all this. At the beginning of the Christian era, a group of people who owned small livestock, sheep and perhaps goats, moved into the northern and western parts of South Africa and migrated southward. These pastoralists called Kokoi or Hatanat resembled the San in many ways, and lived and gathered by in many ways, and lived by gathering wild plants and domesticating animals. Coincidentally, in the eastern parts of the country, another migration was occurring. The Bantu-speaking people moving southward, bringing with them cattle, the concept of planting crops, and settled village life. Unfortunately, the Hatanat met these black-skinned farmers and obtained from them cattle in exchange for animal skins. No, ultimately, there we go. Ultimately, the Hottentots met these black-skinned farmers and obtained from them cattle in exchange for animal skins and other items. Thus, when white settlers arrived in the mid-17th century, the whole country was inhabited by three different groups. By three different groups: the hunter-gatherers San, the pastoralists Kokoi, and the farmers Bantu. At first, the San coexisted peacefully with the Nguni, a sub-language group of the Bantu speakers, the Zulu, Xhosa, Swazwi, and the Bele, who intermarried with the San and incorporated some of the distinctive and characteristic cliques of the San language into their own languages. Contact with Nguni and Soto Swana's farmers is depicted in the San rock art. The artist stated including representations of cattle and sheep as well as people with shields and spears in their paintings. Unfortunately, hunter-gatherers cannot permanently live alongside a settled community, and thus problems arose. When the San fought against the Bantu, they were at a huge disadvantage, not only in number but also in lack of weapons. With the Europeans, they were at an even greater disadvantage. The Europeans owned horses and firearms. In this period, the number of San were greatly reduced. They fought to death and preferred death to capture, where they would be forced into slavery. Colonialism destroyed the San migratory way of life. They were no longer allowed to roam freely, and trophy hunters destroyed the vast herds of game that formed their principal supply of food. Both black and white farmers built up huge herds of cattle that destroyed the foods that had been the San staples diets for centuries. Stop right there. You see how they try to do that with the black people and the white? No, that's not. Look, she just said, whoever's writing this, he is explained that the white people killed these people in mass. I'm going to carry on. Enslavement and sometimes mass destruction of San communities by both white and black farmers followed. Many became farm laborers and some joined black farming communities. Many became farm laborers and some joined black farmer communities. So the farm laborers are the white people and the black farmer communities are obviously the black people. And intermarried with them, which added to the destruction of the social identity of the San people. The San have no formal authority figure or chief, but govern themselves by group consensus. Disputes are resolved through lengthy discussions where all involved have a chance to make their thoughts heard until some agreement is reached. Certain individuals may assume leadership in specific spheres in which they excel, such as hunting or healing rituals, but they cannot achieve positions of general influence or power. Excuse that. White colonists found this very confusing when they tried to establish treaties with the Sun. Leadership among the San is kept for those who have lived within the group for a long time, who have achieved a respectable age and good character. San are largely egalitarian, sharing such things as meat and tobacco. One moment. Land is usually owned by a group, and rights to a land are usually inherited bilaterally. Kinship bonds provide the basic framework for political models. Membership in a group is determined by residency. As long as a person lives on the land of his group, he maintains his membership. It is possible to hunt on land not owned by the group, but permission must be obtained by the owners, from the owners. The San will eat anything available, both animal and vegetable. Their selection food ranges from antelope, zebra, porcupine, wild hare, lion, giraffe, fish, insects, tortoise, flying ants, snakes, venomous and non-venomous, hyena, eggs, and wild honey. The meat is boiled or roasted on a fire. The San are not wasteful. Every part of the animal is used. The hides can be tanned for blankets, and the bones can be cracked for the marrow. Water is hard to come by, as the San are constantly on the move. Usually during dry seasons, these migrants collect their moisture by scraping and squeezing roots. If they are out hunting or traveling, they would dig holes in the sand to find water. They can also carry water in an ostrich eggshell. The San are excellent hunters. Hunting methods. Although they do have a fair amount of trapping, the best method of hunting is with bow and arrow. The San do not kill the animal straight away. It is the deadly poison which eventually causes the death. In the case of a small antelope, such as a dukir or a steenbok, a couple of hours may elapse before death. For a larger antelope, this could be 7 to 12 hours. For a large game such as a giraffe, it could take as long as 3 days. Today, the San make the poison from a larvae of a small beetle, but will also use poison from plants such as euphorbia and snake venom. A caterpillar, reddish and yellow in color and about 3/4 of an inch long, called ka or ngwa, is also used. The poison is boiled repeatedly until it looks like red currant jelly. It is then allowed to cool and ready to be smeared on the arrows. The poison is highly toxic and greatly feared by the Sans themselves. The arrow points are therefore reversed, so the poison is safely contained within the reed collar. It is never smeared on the point, but just below it, thus preventing fatal accidents. Things that have happened in the past. The poison is a neurotoxic and does not contaminate the whole animal. The spot where the arrow strikes is cut out and thrown away, but the rest of the meat is fit to eat. The effect of the poison is not instantaneous, and the hunters frequently have to track the animal for a few days. This is how they're able to track an injured animal from a non-injured one. However, I'm going to keep going. The San also dug pitfalls near the larger rivers where the game came to drink. The pitfalls were large and deep, narrowing like a funneling towards the bottom, in which the center, in the center of which was a planted sharp stake. These pitfalls were cleverly covered with brushes, which resulted in animals walking over the pit and falling onto the stake. When catching small animals such as hares, guinea fowl, steenbok, or duker, traps made of twisted gut or fiber from plants were used. These had a running noose that strangled the animals when it stepped into the snare to collect food that had been placed inside. Another way of capturing animals was to wait at aardvark holes. Aardvark holes are used by small buck as a resting place to escape midday sun. The hunter waited patiently behind the hole until the animal left. When this happened, it was firmly pinned and hit on the head with the kiri, with a carry or a club. The San are intelligent trackers and know the habits of their prey. On discovering where a herd has gathered, they immediately test the direction and force of the wind by throwing a handful of dust in the air. If the ground is bare and open, he will crawl on his belly, sometimes holding a small bush in front of him. Hunters carry a skin bag slung around one shoulder containing personal belongings, poison, medicine, fly whisk, and additional arrows. They may also carry a club to throw at and stun small game, and a long probing stick to extract hairs from their burrows, or a stick to dig out an aardvark or warthog. Hunting is a team effort, and a man whose arrow killed the animal has the right to distribute the meat to the tribe members and visitors who, after hearing about the kill, would arrive soon afterwards to share in the feast. According to the San tradition, they were welcome to share the meal and would, in the future, have to respond in the same way. However, plant foods gathered by the womenfolk are not shared but eaten by the women's immediately. The San make use of over 100 edible species of plant. While the men hunt, the women, who are experts in foraging for edible mushrooms, bulbs, berries, and melons, gather food for the family. Children stay at home to be watched over by those remaining in the camp, but nursing children are carried on these gathering trips, adding to the load the women must carry. Gender roles are not jealously guarded in San society. Women sometimes assist in the hunt, and men sometimes help gather the plant foods. Until recently, most amateur professional anthropologists looked at the rock painting of the San and believed that they could decipher it without any problems. The pieces that they did not understand were passed off as crude art or thought as artists that had too much to drink or smoke. Wow! This had been found not to be the case, and their work is recognized as holding deep spiritual and religious meaning. Contrary to popular belief, these paintings and engravings of strange human figures and animals, especially the eland, a species of the antelope, did not depict everyday life but a deeper religious and symbolic meaning. When shaman or medicine men painted an eland, they did not just pay respect to a sacred animal, they also harnessed its essence, Noom, by putting paint to the rock. They would be able to open portals to the spirit world. Sand rock paintings are found in rocky areas of the KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape provinces. The San mainly used red, ranging from orange to brown, white, black, and yellow in the paintings. Blue and green were never used. Red was devised from hematite, red ochre, and yellow from limonite, yellow ochre. Manganese oxide and charcoal were used for black and white, which does not preserve well, was probably obtained from bird droppings or kaolin. The blood of an eland, an animal or of great religious and symbolic significance, was often mixed into the color pigments. Another striking feature of the rock art, it is the embodiment of action and speed. Human figures are stylized and depicted as having long strides, and the animals are either galloping or leaping, or more subtly, flicking a tail or twisting a neck. Most of the paintings have an underlying spiritual theme and believed to have been representations of religious ceremonies and rituals. The San belief system. The San system generally observes the supremacy of one powerful God, while at the same time recognizing the presence of lesser gods along with their wives and children. Homage is also paid to the spirits of the deceased. Among the San, it is believed that working the soil is contrary to the world order established by the god. Okay. Some groups also revere the moon. The most important spiritual being to the southern San was Kagin, the trickster deity. He created many things and appears in numerous myths where he can be foolish or wise, tiresome or helpful. The word Kagan can be translated as mantis. This led to the belief that the San worshipped the praying mantis. However, Kagin is not always a praying mantis, as the mantis is only one of his manifestations. He can also turn into an elan, a hare or a snake or a vulture. He can assume many forms. When he is not one of the animal forms, Kagan lives as his ordinary form, as he lives his life as an ordinary son. Wow. Okay. San rituals. The eland is the most important spiritual animal and appears in four rituals: the boy's first kill, girl's puberty, marriage, trance dance. A ritual which is held where the boys track down an eland and how the eland will fall once shot with an arrow. The boy will become an adult when he kills his first large antelope, preferably an eland. Once thought the eland is skinned and the fat from the animal's throat and collarbone is made into broth. The girl's puberty rituals. A young girl is isolated in her hut at her first menstruation. The women of the tribe perform the eland bull dance where they intimate the mating behavior of the eland cows, where they imitate the mating behavior of the eland cows. A man will play the part of the eland bull, usually with the horns on his head. The ritual will keep the girl beautiful, free from hunger and thirst, and peaceful. As part of the marriage ritual, the man gives the fat from the eland's heart to the girl's parents. At a later stage, the girl is anointed with the eland fat. In the trance dance, the eland is considered the most potent of all the animals, and the shaman aspires to possess eland potency. The San believed that eland was Kagan's favorite animal. San people have vast oral traditions, and many of their tales include stories about gods that serve to educate listeners about what is considered moral San behavior, music and dance. Of prime importance in all San groups is ritual dance that serves to heal the group. The great medicine or healing of dance and the rain dance were rituals in which everyone participated. During these dances, the women usually sat around central fires as they sang and clapped their hands. The men then first danced around the women in a clockwise direction and then vice versa. As the dance increased in intensity, the dancers reached trance-like altered states of consciousness and were transported into the spirit realm where they could plead for the souls of the sick. These trance dances are depicted on the rock art left behind by the San. The shamanic figures are often painted in strange bending forward postures. Shamans or medicine men explain later that they adopted this posture during this trance because they experienced a great deal of pain when the potency started boiling in their stomachs and their stomach muscles started contracting. They also often experience spontaneous nosebleeds at this time. These nosebleeds are depicted in the many rock paintings of the trance dances. As other groups invaded the territory of the San and influenced the way of life, the pictures of soldiers, wagons, and horses served to record historical events. The Kalahari San held similar beliefs and revered a greater and lesser god, the first associated with life and the rising sun, and the latter with illness and death. The shamans who went into trances and altered states of existence during ritual dances thus acquired access to the lesser gods who caused illness. Birth, death, birth, death, gender, rain, and weather were all believed to have supernatural significance. For example, people acquired good or bad rain-bringing abilities at birth, and this ability was reactivated when the person died. Another shared belief was the fact that when people was first another shared belief was the fact that when the world was first created, animals and people were indistinguishable. People had not yet acquired manners and culture, and only after the second creation, when they were separated from animals and educated in separate social code. Most San believed that upon death, the soul was sent back to the great God's house in the sky. Dead people could, however, still influence the living, and when a medicine man died, the people were very concerned lest his spirit become a danger to the living. Life of the San today. Today, the San suffer from a perception that their lifestyle is primitive and that they need to be made to live like the majority cattle herding tribes. Specific problems vary according to where they live. In South Africa, for example, the Komani now have most of their land rights recognized, but many other San tribes have no land rights at all. Few modern San are able to continue as hunter-gatherers. Most live at the very bottom of the social scale in unacceptable conditions of poverty, leading to alcoholism, violence, prostitution, disease, and despair. The last of the hunter-gatherers were forcibly evicted from the Central Kalahari Game Reserve as recently as 2002 by the Botswana government to make way for diamond mines. A court case is currently in existence to help the San claim their land. The official reason was to provide them with services such as schools, medical services, and to bring them into modern society. In fact, few of these services have materialized, and the San have been confined to bleak encampments in a hostile environment. The San are a friendly, creative, and peaceful people who never developed any weapons of war and have lived in harmony with their natural environment for at least 20,000 years, so they say. Properly restored to their ancestral lands and reintegrated into the game reserves of Southern Africa, San communities could be self-sustaining. The hardiness of the San allowed them to survive their changed fortunes and the harsh conditions of the Kalahari Desert, in which they are now mostly concentrated. Today, the small group that remains has adopted many strategies for political, economic, and social survival. The San retain many of their ancient practices, but have made certain compromises to modern living. The Westernized myths regarding the San have caused considerable damage. They portray the San as simple, childlike people without a problem in the world. This could not be further from the truth. Due to absorption, but mostly extinction, the San may soon cease to exist as a separate people. Unfortunately, they may soon only be viewed in national museums. Their traditions, beliefs, and cultures may soon only be found in historical journals. That's the beginning of this, or the ending, whichever one I drop first, because I'm coming with the Middle Earth journey like no other.